Okay, we are ready for our next step in our writing process. So we have already brainstormed, we wrote our rough draft, we revised by adding in some similes to make it more descriptive. And so today we're going to be doing the next step, which is close editing our poem. So you're going to need a few things. One, you're going to need your 5 cents poem rough draft with the similes that you added. And then you're also going to need a blue, pink, yellow, and orange marker or colored pencil or crayon. So if you don't have those things already, go ahead and pause the video and go grab them. And when you have all your materials, you may push play. Okay, so we are going to do a few different read-throughs of our popcorn poem. It says first read is to check, did you use your senses to write your poem? And you should have taste, sounds, smells, looks like, and feels. So let's check and see if it has that. Popcorn is my favorite snack. It tastes like a delicious treat. It sounds as crunchy as fall leaves. It smells like a bowl full of butter. It looks as puffy as clouds. It makes me feel like watching a movie. So did I use my senses? I have tastes, sounds, smells, looks, and feel. So will you underline those words as well in your poem to make sure that you have your senses? Then we're going to need our blue marker. So the second read, we're going to be looking for capital letters. And capital letters need to be at the beginning of all of our sentences. It needs to be, if you have any words that are the letter I by itself, those need to be capitalized. Or if you have any words that are proper nouns, like a specific name of a store or name of a person or brand of popcorn, then those would need to be capitalized as well. So I'm going to look through, especially at the beginning. I don't think I have any proper nouns or I by itself, but I do need a capital at the beginning of each sentence. So I'm going to underline all of those in blue. And if you have one that isn't capitalized, just fix it with your pen or pencil, and then you can underline it in blue. But the goal is that we're checking to make sure that we've got all of those capitalized. So it's okay to stop and fix it. That's part of the editing process. Now the next thing we're going to do is look for punctuation marks. In a lot of poetry, you don't use punctuation marks like you do in a typical essay or narrative. But in this case, we actually do have full sentences. In a 5 cents poem, we have full sentences, and so we actually should have periods at the end of each of our lines because each of those lines is a full sentence. So usually poetry kind of breaks the rules on punctuation, but in this case, we do need it. So you need to look, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 punctuation marks. Could be periods, they could be exclamation points. Probably not question marks since you're stating what it tastes like, sounds like, smells like, looks like, and feels like. But there should be some kind of end punctuation in your poem. So I'm going to look, and I can already see here on my first sentence, I don't have one. So I'm going to add it, and then I'm going to highlight it in pink. Okay, on my second sentence, it tastes like a delicious treat. I do have one. In my third sentence, it sounds as crunchy as fall leaves. I do. It smells like a bowl full of butter. There's no punctuation mark, so I'm going to add and then highlight in pink. It looks as puffy as clouds. I do have a punctuation mark. It makes me feel like watching a movie. I need a punctuation mark, so I'm going to add and then highlight. I want you to do the same thing. You can pause if you need to, but go through and highlight your punctuation marks in pink. Now, the third one is a little bit more difficult because we are going to be looking for spelling words that we think might be spelled incorrectly. And so I'm going to look through mine here. Favorite's kind of a hard word, so I might want to underline favorite and have a grown-up check that. Delicious doesn't look quite right, so I'm going to underline that. And I think everything else looks okay. So I want you to do the same thing. Look through, find all of your sight words and words that you know should be spelled correctly. There may even be some on my page that you use, so you can use those to check. Favorite actually is okay, but delicious is spelled wrong. So I'm going to cross this out, and I'm going to rewrite it the correct way so that when I am finished with my final copy, it is all 100% correct. Now, if I wasn't sure how to spell delicious, I could do a couple things. One, I could look up how to spell it on my iPad. Two, I could ask a grown-up to help look for spelling errors in my poem as well. But I do want you to look through it, and hopefully you can fix all of those spelling errors that you have. Okay, and now the last step in our editing is we are going to look for similes and adjectives that we added in to our poems to make them more descriptive. Now remember, you did not have to have a simile on every single line. For example, I don't have one on my first line here. So it's okay if you don't have one on every line, but the goal was to do as many as we could. Remember that similes use the words like or as to describe something. So I'm going to be looking for those. Those are kind of my clues that I have a simile. And then an adjective also describes a noun. So I'm going to be looking for those as well as I look through my poem here. Okay, so an adjective describes the noun. So it tastes like that's my simile. Delicious would be my adjective, treat. It sounds as crunchy as, so here's my simile, as crunchy would be my adjective. It smells like, there's my simile, a bowl full of butter. It looks as puffy as, so as would be the simile, puffy would be my adjective. It makes me feel like watching a movie. So there are my similes. I want to make sure that I have all of those in my poem so that I have a more descriptive poem. So once I have my final edits done, I am then going to move on to my published copy. And the published copy has to be written without any errors at all. It should be really pretty. So this one is kind of a mess, right? I have tons of things crossed out. I have marker all over it, right? It's kind of a mess. But now I'm going to take it over to my final copy, and I'm going to write it in my best, neatest, most beautiful handwriting and without any of those errors that I have to cross out. So I need you to find this yellow popcorn page. You can cut it out after we have finished the video, but I'm going to show you what it looks like to take your rough draft and then move it over to your final copy. So first of all, these popcorn pops up here need to have the adjectives that we used to describe our popcorn. So I used delicious, I used crunchy, originally I used buttery, puffy, and I changed this one to like watching a movie. Okay, so this box right here is for our title. And the title should explain what your poem is going to be about. So I'm going to do popcorn. You can do the same one. It does need to have a capital because it is a title. Okay, and it should describe what your poem is about. So popcorn. Now I'm ready to take my sentences from here and rewrite them over here. Now normally I tell you not to drop down a line for each line that you're writing, but in this case, since it's a poem, we are going to do that. So popcorn, you need to write a little bit small because we don't have a lot of space, is my, and notice I had crossed out yellow, so I'm not going to write it on this one. I'm only going to write the words that I still need. Favorite snack, and then I can't forget my punctuation mark. Okay, then I'm going to drop down to the next line. It tastes like a delicious treat. Okay, so one line per line that you had on your rough draft, and you're going to go ahead and finish off the rest of those with your sounds like, smells like, looks like, and feels like. So one line per line on your poem. If you run out of space, you can go on to the back, but your goal should be to write all the way through a line on one line at a time. So that's the goal. Now tomorrow we're going to be putting together our published copy by making a popcorn bowl. So you will want to keep this in a really safe spot so that tomorrow you're ready to go. Go ahead and finish your final copy and then post a picture on schoolwork.